Welcome to a semester of fortunate events. I'm your host, Jessica Bennett, and this podcast explores how our education, careers, and life experiences intersect in unexpected ways. My own journey has been filled with moments that seemed like hurdles or challenges, but ultimately they turned into opportunities for growth. Today, I'm excited to share the airspace with Joy. She's a fellow student here at the University of Houston, Clear Lake. She is in her undergraduate program and graduates here in just a few weeks. I'll let her talk about that. Her passions are animation, video editing, and creating and drawing. So Joy, please introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about your background, what drew you to UHCL, and then the exciting things coming up like your graduation.
All right, so I am Joy, and I'm very happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. I am getting my bachelor's in communications, and I am minoring in graphic design and video production. And I just got accepted into the graduate master's program, digital media studies.
Woo!
So I'm very excited about that.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. So this is something I've been hoping for years. It's really an exciting journey to be have a college route that allows you to be creative, because it lets you use your imagination and inspire other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's wonderful, and congratulations on getting accepted. That's a huge milestone and very exciting. I know you graduate, you mentioned December 14th, so
Yes,
less
we're
than a month
almost
away.
there. Almost
Are you walking and doing the ceremony?
I am.
Good. When is that? Is that the 14th? That's the official date?
It is. Yeah, it's 10 in the morning, but I have to be there at 8. It's downtown.
Yes, I was going to say, where are they holding it?
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. I actually walked, I think it was a December graduation as well, because I officially graduated in August, I want to say, with my degree in communication. So tell us again what your exact degree title is. Is it communication?
Yes, Bachelor Arts in Communications.
Okay, wonderful. So we're twinsies there. And then you were accepted to the digital media program. And what drew you into this field? Did you enjoy these types of things growing up? How did you find out about UHCL's program that led you to where you are now?
So I always loved video games.
Okay.
And I wanted to be, when I was younger, I wanted to be a voice actor. So all the characters that you hear their voices in television series, games, they're animated. They're not with real actors, I should say. And so just getting to hear the voices, it's like, oh, there are actually people doing these things behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to be a part of that, because I'm not the type of person to go out, be in the limelight, and, be the center of attention.
Yes.
So something that allows me to be creative and have fun, but also just give people, entertain people.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was looking for career options, I was like, voice acting is really competitive, and I don't think you gotta live in LA or New York, or I know they have a hub up in Dallas, but I don't exactly feel like moving at this stage in my life.
Sure.
So I changed ideas, and I can still be creative. So I was thinking animation, because I love to write books.
Oh.
And I do love to draw, but as much as I like to draw, I do have a harder time drawing people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easier for me to do that digitally. And
Right.
so I was like, how can I expand my skill set with digital art? So I looked for colleges, and I originally went to San Jac South,
Okay.
but then I saw that UHCL has a digital media studies master's program.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I definitely want to try to go there. So I transferred from San Jac and started attending UHCL. But, to get a master's, you have to get a bachelor's first. So I was like, what is a good field for me? So, because I originally wanted to actually do massage therapy.
Oh, wow.
So got a lot of different
Yeah, that's a big shift.
talents there. But Yeah, because when I started out, I thought, I think as much as money I would make with this career, it's not my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to do something I'm passionate about. So I chose communications because it's such a broad field of study.
Yes.
Because you can do news reporting, you can do writing. I mean, you can do really anything creative with it.
Mm-hmm. The sky really is the limit. There are so many opportunities.
It is. And that's what I learned going into this or through this process. What I've learned is if you can imagine it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's given me that hopeful mindset and like makes me feel more confident because it's like knowing that I can do not whatever I want, but like whatever I put my mind to.
Mm-hmm.
It feels really fulfilling, I should
Yes.
say.
Well, that's beautiful. I love all of that. I didn't know that part about your background. I actually also started at San Jack South. I think you might know a little bit about my personal story, but I attended school in Leak City and did really well in high school. And I was accepted early to Texas A&M. And then right before the summer before I was supposed to go to A&M, I found out I was pregnant with my son, Branson. So my family did not want me to go to College Station. They wanted me to stay here and, do school here and just be closer so they could help support me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. And so, I did that and it was a struggle just, not being able to fulfill that dream. And, 'cause all of my family went to A&M. My brother, my sister, both my parents, that's where they met.
Gotta keep going on that
it's
legacy.
Like that, yes, the legacy. And it stopped temporarily with me. And so that was, really sad and disappointing. But my education has been excellent and it worked with my schedule. So I went to San Jack South. I think I even went to San Jack Central for some classes. The program there at the time, I was thinking I would become a teacher. So I was going for early childhood development was what I had my associate's degree in. And then right when I was switching over to come to UHCL for the last, part of my degree, I shifted from education to communication. So that's when and my sister actually played a role in that choice. And she doesn't remember that, but we were talking about my options and she knew I had a, creative mind and loved, like photography and video and, just things like that. I liked creating things and making things. But it's more of like the playful, crafty type of stuff. But still, I've always been a strong writer as well. And so marketing and communication really, truly was the best choice for me. So that's so fun that we both kind of had similar, experiences with San Jack and then going to UHCL after that.
Journeys and changing majors.
Yes, exactly. Because you were saying you wanted to do massage therapy. So, and look where we are now. You also mentioned that you like writing books.
I do.
How many books have you written?
They are all unfinished. It was really just a hobby I had when I was a kid. So really all the things I've written, like they sounded great at the time, but looking back, it's like, wow, this is kind of cringy. Yeah. So like, I think I had some good ideas going, but they're from a youthful mind.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's another coincidence we have because whenever I was younger, I used to write books and I'm not an artist. I truly have no business drawing anything, but I would draw, pictures to go with my book, and I truly entered into a couple contests, like book writing contests for children.
That's awesome.
Of course, I didn't win anything, but I remember writing one book about this bat, and it was just around this little bat, and that's all I really remember. But but it started young, the desire and the skill to write. Right before I rejoined the DMST program, because I started here in 2012 and then had to pause and then re-entered in 2023. So right before I joined again, I was thinking about, I really want to finish my master's degree. I started it all those years ago, and I know it'll be beneficial to learn more skills in my field. So I was trying to think of some things and keep myself busy, and I ended up writing a couple of, fun, silly little children's books as well. It was a crazy time. The books are not super professional or polished, but they but they're done. You know,
But that's the point with kids' books. They don't care about professionalism as long as it's fun.
Yeah. So, and they were actually very therapeutic for me when I wrote them. The series was designed after my 2 rescue cats from the Lake City Animal Shelter, Jane Austen and George.
That's so precious.
So the series is called The Fabulous Adventures of George and Jane. And I've written 3 books, and it talks about different adventures that happen. So the first one was Jane and the pearl necklace. Yeah, the premise behind this was she had this very valuable necklace given to her at birth, and then somewhere along the way, someone who she thought was a friend stole that from her, this special thing that she can never get back. And Jane made her way back home, and George was there to greet her and help her get through her loss, basically. So the also underlying message in each book, it hits on hard topics without actually talking about the hard topics.
Yeah.
And overcoming, and that's also sort of what this podcast is about, is challenges and things that, obstacles and things that have happened along your way throughout your life. But trying to find the joy, no pun intended, the joy in them, or the positive outcomes, or just seeing how, even negative circumstances can lead to still beautiful outcomes. So I think that's kind of fun that those books tie into this podcast, and that was not really conscious. It was not really related. So, but I do have those books on Amazon if anyone wants to.
I will have to check them out.
To check them out. I did, I had them made and printed, and then Amazon's producing them too. So
that's so cool.
I've only sold 7 total copies, but they're out there,
I will definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was a fun, interesting little process, but it's part of my journey, Well, let's talk about this program, the communication program. So you only have a few classes left. And the class that we're in together is this podcasting class. So did you ever think that you would be doing podcasting at any point in your life?
Absolutely not. Because, I've always liked voice acting, and the idea of being in a studio, getting to use my voice to create content.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've not antisocial, but very introverted. So public speaking has always been a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this has really helped me become more confident in before I used to hate the way I sounded over the phone or when recording myself just doing anything random, but this has let me get used to, okay, this is how I sound. How can I make myself sound more professional? How can I enunciate more? And how can I express what I mean to without making so many mistakes?
Mm-hmm. I understand that. I've always had some challenges with speech. Whenever I was younger, I couldn't say my R's, and so I had to do some speech therapy, and I still cannot say them very well. So
I think you do a great job.
Well, you didn't hear me back then. It'll come out, so just don't pay too close attention. But
no worries.
My maiden name is O'Rear, and you can imagine, first of all, the name. Bless us for having to carry that for so long. But also just, it was a challenge, growing up with a name that you also can't really say very well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, so yes, I've had, some speech that this is something that definitely, helps you hear what you need to work on, listening back to podcasts.
Yeah, because also that's kind of relatable to me because I do have a Southern accent.
Do you?
I do. It's not very pronounced usually.
Okay.
But sometimes, when I get really excited,
Mm-hmm.
It just slips out.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that I have a hard time pronouncing my own name sometimes. I mean, it's only 3 letters.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, when I was younger, my friends thought my name was Joey.
Oh, really?
Because when I'm young, it's like joy,
Yeah.
you have to stretch it out.
Yeah.
You stretch out all the Southern words. But
That's so cute.
yeah, so for the longest time, it's like, okay, I need to make sure I pronounce things correctly, so there aren't as many things that get lost in translation.
Yeah. I also am a naturally fast talker, so I have to slow down. And sometimes, when I'm super comfortable or not thinking about it, people cannot understand me, except for my sister, because we're twins and, we're just blah, 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 and no one else in the world knows what we're saying except for us.
Yeah, I am very much the same. It sounds like I'm rapping most of the time. I
Yes.
don't mean to. My brain works so fast, my mouth can barely keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that a lot of the times I end up saying things and my thoughts get lost because my mind's already on another topic, but my mouth was still talking about the other thing that I was thinking about.
Yep. I can relate to that too. So back, I guess also related to the podcast topic, I too never really figured or thought I would be on a podcast or hosting a podcast. But it has been really fun. And, preparing for each podcast, it seems to be a little bit easier, natural for me, just because I have experience with planning and, content development. So it's been enjoyable for me to put the podcast sessions together, even though sometimes it takes a little longer, like this morning when I was finishing up my notes for this one. But I really do enjoy it. What has been the most surprising or exciting part of the class so far for you?
Let's see. I think that for me, the most surprising and exciting part is that you never know what other people are going to say.
Yes, so true.
Because they have so many different backgrounds. They have so many different experiences. And I think one of the things is that when you're preparing your notes, you need to prepare for all sorts of scenarios, because even if you have a template, some person's experiences might not line up with what you planned.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, one of the say friendship or family episodes that I made, I went in with certain expectations, and then it turns out that their lifestyle was completely different than what I had anticipated. And so I had to reform all of my questions. And so I think just knowing in advance, like, I should probably make some leeway, so that way if I need to change anything, it's not like I have to completely flip everything on its head.
Yes.
I can just make minor adjustments.
Yeah, that's a good point. So each podcast I would like to have an outline with, potential things to hit on or talk about, but no podcast has done that, has gone, to scripts, only because it's not supposed to. These are supposed to be open conversations, and you're kind of feeding off of one another. So very true that it's never going to be exactly what you thought it would be, which can be a little like that's not where I wanted to go with that. But overall, it's been, each of the podcast sessions I've had have been so enjoyable, and I've learned something from my guests every time.
I think that's really what the whole point is that you're supposed to be able to share experiences and learn from other people. So that way, the whole don't let history repeat itself kind of thing. Yeah. It's kind of like that, but it's like, I haven't experienced it, but like you guys can give me a warning, so that way, because I know you've experienced this thing. So yes. In a way, we're all learning from each other without necessarily having to go through each other's hardships.
Exactly. And this is a great class, for students in the communication or in the digital medias program, to learn about audio recording and learn about, like you mentioned, just, speech and pronunciation and speaking for your outlet, for your, medium. So certain, voices and characteristics play over differently on podcasts versus, a different presence you might need on TV, or a different presence you would just even have behind the scenes. So there's, kind of characters in each outlet of media.
Yeah, very much so. Because I think the thing that I really like about podcasting is that it's very enlightening and I guess uplifting, because these people are going through different scenarios in their life, different situations, but they all have their own ways of coping, and they also have overcome other things. And knowing that, you've overcome your problems, maybe it'll give me the strength to overcome mine.
Yeah. And that hits on storytelling. Were we in that class together last semester?
I don't think so. Maybe. But
have you taken storytelling with Professor Brim?
I have not.
Okay. I think that's actually a DMST.
I think I'm gonna take it. I think the classes have all filled up this semester, but maybe in the next fall
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Well, yes, sorry, because sometimes I've mentioned to you, I forget that you're communication student and the classes aren't all the same. But as we mentioned, you start in January with your DMST program. Storytelling is a newer course that they have added to the curriculum. It's so beneficial. I learned a lot as far as how you can tie storytelling into marketing and communications, and how it's a better connection with the audience. You're really being vulnerable and sharing different aspects of your message. And so that's something that Professor Brems hits on is, storytelling has been with us since we were children. It's ancient history of how we share and communicate. And, you're really missing out on a large, a good tactic for marketing and advertising through storytelling. So if you're not doing that in your efforts, you're leaving a lot on the table, essentially. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
That is a difficult question because I don't have a big plan after college, really. Getting to college was my plan.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I'm here, it's like, well, I don't know what the future holds for me. But I was thinking about being a freelance graphic designer.
Okay.
Because as much as I would like to work for a company,
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't want to have my creativity stifled as much.
Yes.
Because, you got to stick to the brand, and I totally get
know.
that. But with freelance, when you're being hired by people, obviously you have to stick to their standards, but it varies with each person, so you still get a variety
Yes.
of tasks to do.
Very true. Very true. So, I have worked, I've done some freelance work. I've worked for different corporations. I've worked for 2 different agencies. So I worked for a PR firm right out of school when I graduated in 2011. And now I work for a boutique marketing agency. And I joined last year, became full-time early this year. So working in the agency setting and also working in the corporate setting, it is so different, and there's pros and cons to both. But working as a freelancer in the agency setting, you do get to have multiple clients. The work's always different, but you do, as you mentioned, have to adhere to their brand guidelines. And, you might put something together and think it's so great and you're so proud of it, and they come back and redline it. And,
Yep.
This is not anything what we wanted. That's something that, because I'm not an expert in graphic design, but it's something that I have to do a lot. And usually I'm trying to do, simple things in graphic design, because we have designers we partner with too for bigger projects. But I definitely do get into my feelings a little bit because, I'm spending a lot of time and effort on things. And then when they're not well received, that's something that I have to work on. But then again, it's not my expertise. So I'm trying to pull my feelings away from that a little bit.
I'm sure people can cut you a little grace since you don't have as much experience with
well,
it.
And all my clients are so great, and in the past in all my roles, I've for the most part have had really great support, and a great team and great leaders. I think part of it's me, just my perfectionism and wanting it to be perfect, and just knowing that sometimes I'm not the best person to work on that kind of thing, So also learning your skills and where you are really an expert and the things that you might need to source out.
Yeah, I feel that because a lot of times I do have to tone down my perfectionism. It's okay, this doesn't have to be perfect. I know that sounds so painful, but it doesn't have to be perfect, because I know that because you want it to be the best that it can be, and you don't want to sacrifice. Let's say we don't want to sacrifice quality.
Yes.
And that can be really difficult when you're on a time crunch or when you have other expectations that need to be met. So it's just the idea that, as long as the customer is happy, it doesn't matter if I'm happy. It matters if they're happy.
Right. And sometimes it takes, several rounds. So last year, I started as vice president of marketing for a custom home builder in Houston. And so I'm the VP of marketing in that role, but also a team of 1. So I'm the marketing department. And I outsourced some things, that I definitely was this is not my skill set. But certain things I would work on internally that were just a little bit more simple or not as detailed, So a few things, I had worked on, and like, for example, there was this billboard that I put together, a design, and I swear we went through like 20 revisions, and I'm like, I guess I'm not the person to make these designs, because I put one together, and maybe at this point I was even working with a graphic designer, but giving him direction, and the leadership team still didn't love it. So sometimes you'll go through that process where you have so many revisions and the leaders don't even know like what their vision is. They just know that they don't like this or they do like this. So
Yeah,
part of
it's part of the it's like part of the job is to read their mind.
yes, and part of the job is to just know that sometimes you'll go through so many iterations and revisions, and then sometimes you'll present one item or one project and it's perfect. So just having to pull back, step back and look at it for what it is and not take it personally is something that I have had to work on. So the main focus of this podcast, and just to kind of wrap us up, is, fortunate events. A penny for your thoughts. Do you have a time that you could share of an unexpected challenge or a pivotal moment, either in your personal life or in college, that turned into a defining or fortunate event, something that started as a challenge and now, flipped on the other side?
Yeah, so definitely. So I'd say this semester has been probably one of the roughest semesters for me mentally. Like the coursework wasn't bad, but I've been going through stuff.
Yeah.
So I think one of the big things is that I've had a hard time really dealing with men.
Yes.
So I've had negative experiences in the past, and my internship is an all-male workplace. So I've had a really difficult time because I go there 4 days a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then I'd be there all Friday for football games, so noon to midnight. And so it was just exhausting, just basically being almost the only girl there. And so I think the one thing that how it turned into a fortunate event was that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like what I do there,
Yes.
but it's just, it's physically, mentally exhausting for me. But I think the way that it did turn into a fortunate event was that there was one other female intern there, and her name's Caitlin.
Okay.
And she, I guess we could say God put us in our own lives if we can speak religiously.
We can.
But yeah, because she, at the time she lives downtown.
Okay.
And so she has to drive over an hour to get down here. And she doesn't have a car, so she has to take an Uber, and it's so expensive.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so when she comes down here for her class on Thursdays, I'll drive her to her class. And so
Aw.
she has a ride and doesn't have to pay for stuff.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
great.
she's able to keep me company while we're there. And
Yeah.
so also, it's just, she has a very strong faith. And I think that's kind of where I've struggled recently. And because I mean, I do have faith, but I believe it's not as strong as I would like it to be. Because I do believe I definitely have drifted over the past couple semesters. And that's something I've been working on, but she's really helped me because she's very strong in her faith and she is very vocal about it. And
Wow.
and so on our drives to the internship, she would tell me about the different ways God has impacted her life and how he's given her gifts and helped her get through these hardships. And it's like, he can do that for me too.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I just need to be stronger in my faith. And so that's really how it's turned into a fortunate event, is because even if I don't necessarily care for having all the mental exertion of being there, the fortunate part is that it still strengthens me even when I feel weak.
That's really beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing, because, stories like that can really connect with somebody, and someone listening can have a little bit of a brighter picture just knowing, that other people are going through similar situations. So for me as well, just touching on the faith subject, from our conversations that I've been through some challenges personally. I don't really want to get into a lot of them on this podcast, but I will say that a few years ago, I went through a divorce, and it was a very, very hard situation. And we were together since we were 14, 15 officially. and we divorced 3 years ago officially. So I'm 38. So, do the math. That's like 20 plus years of having someone in your life. And, I still do have love for that person, but it was just such a bad relationship, toxic relationship, and not healthy for either one of us. I mean, there were a lot of things that we went through, that I went through. And, I grew up in the church, and that's also something that, listening back drives me crazy. So please forgive
I
me
say
for all
that a
my
lot.
ands and ums.
I
It's
get
just me
it.
thinking. There I go again. But long story short, I grew up in church since I was a baby, and I was baptized at 9. I went to church every week, like 2 or 3 times a week, and my dad was an elder in the church for the longest time. And so I grew up with a very strong faith. And then this relationship, I would say, didn't turn me away from my faith, but it brought a lot of hardships where it made me question my faith. And so a few years ago, probably like 7 years ago, some things had happened, and I really struggled and was questioning and like super angry at God. And, it was a very hard time and a dark place. But I found my way back through online, when like during COVID, when things went online, I connected with the local church in League City. City Mark is where I go, and I love it so much. It's just, the messages they always resonate. And there was something on one of the sermons that it said, what does God have for you in League City? Like, what are you here for? You're here for a reason. And what is it? Basically like find your purpose. And that really made me think, like, I guess I am still here for a reason, in the specific time, specific place for a reason, and to, make the best of it and find my way. So I started, watching more and more online, and then eventually went in person, and was rebaptized in 2022. So I'm a new born again Christian. And my life has then, a couple months after I got baptized, things got so chaotic and crazy. It was like probably one of the worst times of my life, but I was able to get through it because of my faith. And it led me back here to where I'm graduating next year. My son graduates high school next year. So, my faith in God truly has changed my life. So that's another, series of super crazy events that ultimately, like we're in a really great place now versus before.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think like, I might not be in a good place now, but compared to where I was before, it's 100 times better. And like, even if it doesn't feel like it, it is.
Yeah, it is. And, they always say there's like purpose in the pain. And I don't love that, just because I feel like it minimizes what people are going through. But I do think that ultimately you can look back and see purpose, little hints of progress over that time period. Or like if you're going through a hard time, just keep going, and lean on people that you can count on. If you don't have a support system, reach out to us here. Like find your support system. There will always be someone there to listen. Sometimes it'll be a stranger, but there's always someone that can help you get through it. And then you'll get to your fortunate event. You'll get on the other side of it eventually. So, well, thank you so much, Joy, for joining me and for sharing your experience and just your personal insights. It's really been a pleasure getting to talk with you more and hear about your story. For our listeners, please join us again. I'll be continuing this podcast series. This course requires 5 to 7 podcasts, and this is my 5th official recording. But I will actually be extending this podcast series over the next year as part of my capstone for my master's program. So stay tuned. We have a lot of exciting guests coming up, and you'll definitely want to hear their stories. So thank you again, and until next time, bye.